Well, welcome back. Standard Bank weathered a massive global asset disposal period. It worked to remain a competitive player in the domestic and, of course, the African market as well, growing its value way ahead of its rivals over the past 5 years. The man now single-handedly left to steer the bank through the next phase is taking stock with us today. His name is Shabalala. Banks are in political crosshairs. You guys are public enemy number one in some circles. What do you make of the fact that banking has become so politicized over the last 8 months or so?
Bruce, I think, like everybody else, I reflect on this a lot and try and figure out what's going on and why. I think it's unavoidable that we are so central to the economy and therefore in the political economy. We are instruments of policy, whether it be monetary policy and fiscal policy. We collect taxes on behalf of the authorities. And because of the role that we play in the economy, it is natural, I think, that we attract so much attention. And therefore, one has to do one's best based on the values of the institution that you work for, based on the constitution, and based on what you think the role of a financial institution is.
I know you won't talk to the specifics of individual cases. You are the lawyer, and you've got that training in your blood. But everybody knows the Gupta story. Everybody knows that South African banks individually took a decision to not bank the Guptas, and you would have taken those decisions independently of one another. But did that cause the heat to be turned up underneath you, that decision?
Bruce, the last couple of years, the heat has been turned up on us. I don't know what the proximate cause is, but decisions that we've taken in respect of our clients, in respect of our competitive position, in our relationships with politicians, in our relations with state-owned enterprises, it is not surprising that that we find ourselves in a tough place.
How big a decision is it to make the call to say, we won't bank this individual? They came into our branch, they swore at a teller, there was a big incident, they punched a security guard in the face. We just don't want these people in our bank. You can do that. You can choose to not do business. Or we believe these people may be corrupt, they may be involved in money laundering. I mean, they're different scales, I suppose, of making big decisions. But to cut a customer loose is not an easy call.
Bruce, indeed. I mean, your question is spot on. The scale of decisions may differ, but they're all difficult because you rely on volumes. You rely on customers making payments, taking deposits, borrowing from you, taking insurance from you. So you actually do want customers. It's not a good idea to terminate relationships with customers.
But you're regulated. You're regulated
Yes.
out of the Reserve Bank. There is a registrar of banks. You have to comply with FICA legislation, which at the time the Gupta's accounts were closed, hadn't been signed into law yet. It is law now. If you bank people who you believe are up to no good, you're in breach of South African law.
Exactly. So the range of the basis of the decisions ranges from people who insult our staff, treat women in our branches badly, are racist. That's the one type of reason we often terminate. The others is where people are acting fraudulently. The others are where they're acting illegally, and the others are where it falls within the four corners of anti-money laundering legislation and anti-corruption and anti-bribery legislation.
And do you have a responsibility at that point, regardless of the scale of the offence, to either report it to the Human Rights Commission in the case of a racist incident in a branch, or to FICA, or even to the Hawks in the case of fraud or corruption or anything like that?
Yeah, South African law is pretty clear about your reporting obligations, and they range from, as you say, from going to report matters to the police, right across to reporting to the FIC, the FIC. The Combating of Corrupt Practices Act is pretty clear about reporting obligations, and so is the FICA Act in this case.
I mean, if banks find themselves in the crosshairs, another organisation, KPMG, of course, in recent months has come under huge public scrutiny, and we've seen a growing number of South African companies terminating their relationship with KPMG. They're your auditors too.
They are indeed, and you will have seen they issued a report penned by their international operations, where they take accountability for the practices for which they've been accused and criticized. At the moment, we as a financial institution and a company who are audited by them are going through a process of understanding precisely what we need to do in response to the publicly available information, following principles of natural justice, talking to them, understanding from them whether they consider that report to be adequate given the circumstances. And we will make, at the appropriate time, the right decision given the relationship that we've got with them and the relationship that we've got with society. At the end of the day, these things are about trust.
Yeah, and I mean, it's about your trust in your auditors. It's about the public's trust in your auditors and the audit they perform on you. So it's quite a tricky nexus to manage.
It is, and frankly, Bruce, everything about us is being tested. The country's constitution is being tested. The values that are espoused by the audit profession are being tested. You know, how do people comply with the code of conduct and code of practice? The values of these companies, and indeed in our case, our values as a financial institution. Are we sticking to, as I say, principles of natural justice? Are we trustworthy? Are we following processes that are fair? And are we doing the right thing in the interests of our shareholders and in the interests of society? All of that has to be done.
Does it serve any purpose to have KPMG go down in flames? Have KPMG do a Bell Pottinger?
That's a very difficult question. Far be it for me to decide that, but I think it serves the country's interest for us to stick to our codes of practice, to our values, to our principles, to South African law, because the rule of law is fundamental to all of us, and for us to shore up the trust that people have in us as business and financial institutions.
Sim Shabalala, my guest this evening. More with him after this break.